Welcome to Do Your Dailies, the podcast designed to help you on your journey of addiction recovery. We're going to go through the big book of AA and use our collective experience, strength, and hope to help you understand what addiction recovery really looks like. So grab some snacks, sit back, press play, and dig deep. Thanks for being here. Well, welcome to this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. I'm your host, Chris, with some friends of mine, Joe and Dave. How are you guys today? How's it going so far?
Doing very good. Looking forward to jumping into the big book today and having a wonderful conversation about what reveals itself to us today.
My name's Dave, and I'm always excited, anticipatory of harvesting, getting into the book, and excavating thoughts, ideas, seeing what works, asking questions, a well-placed question, all that good stuff. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get into the doctor's opinion today. So those of you, whether you're new to AA and 12-step programs, if you've been around for a while, and you consider yourself an expert, we want to give you a different approach. We want to give you some different perspectives. We want to dissect this. And those of you that maybe have touched into the AA program a little bit, but need some clarification, that's what we want today. So, gentlemen, let's take it away. Let's break into the doctor's opinion. And where do we begin?
Right at the beginning. So what we have here is we have some brief commentary prior to the first letter that Dr. Silkworth wrote, but it's important because what I believe happens is a lot of people just jump into chapter 1 and they miss so much of what we're about to read.
Why do we do that? Why do people jump to 1?
Because they think that that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally, I mean, they're missing the foundation of like what's being laid out for us in the first paragraph is like the medical community needs to like help us understand this, and we're invited to actually start doing that. So with that said,
It's more, for me, it's much simpler. So I have a copy. I didn't bring it today. I'll try to bring it, but I have a copy of one of the original first 5,000 big books printed. It's a big red, it's in a box. And I'd always heard that the doctor's opinion, when this was first written, was actually page 1. And then, my memory may not serve, but 16, 17 editions later, they moved the doctor's opinion back to the Roman numerals. And so as I'm looking here at my doctor's opinion, it's down at the bottom, it's XX5.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, 25 pages in with the other forewords in that, here's this doctor's opinion. Whereas in my first edition, this is page 1. There was a foreword, which we have the first foreword, a page or maybe a page and a half, and then this is page 1. What happens just naturally to the human mind when we see Roman numerals?
Less important.
We don't read them.
right?
We want to get to the stuff.
Yeah.
And so when they first started talking about, read the first from page 1. Now we say read the 164. Personally, the reason I don't believe that that's the right way to do it is because if you read the first 164 pages in the big book, you have skipped the doctor's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it was page 1 is because it's so vital and critical to understanding the condition of addiction. It tells us exactly what the two components are, which we'll get into. But if you don't have that, then I'm not sure how you understand the solution, much less the application of the solution. because one of the things that happens over and over in the book is they describe, here's the problem, here's the solution, here's how to implement it. The doctor's opinion gives us the definition of the problem. So how would I understand the solution? So in my mind, we start with the doctor's opinion and go forward from there.
I'm curious about not the why that it got moved around, but I'll just echo. Yeah, I look at those Roman numerals and I think, okay, this is obligatory. They've got to put this stuff in there. Just like you said, I want to go to that actual page 1, that actual like where does this begin? And so skipping through, and I think maybe in our society today we have a tendency to jump into the solution a little prematurely before we really know what we're dealing with. And if we cannot understand this monster of addiction, of alcoholism, how are we going to be successful continuously in recovery, in the solution, if we don't fully understand and comprehend what we're dealing with, what's going on?
Well, I agree with you 100%, Chris. And what I heard over and over and over ad nauseum for years is, Dave, I'm going along and all of a sudden I get this craving or I'm triggered with drugs or alcohol. And I said, no, you're not. No, it's that sign. It's a song. No, it isn't. It's a thought that comes through. That's the obsession of the mind. Now, can a sign trigger the mind to get going? Because if I have to, in order to be clean and sober, if I have to go out and identify wherever and whenever I might have a craving or what might trigger me, I mean, I might as well live in a closet, because there is no way I can do that. But going back to the doctor's opinion, if I understand the obsession of my mind and that thought, so that song comes on or I see the billboard and it triggers a thought that then I can recognize that's the obsession of my mind. Now I know what to do. I can recognize it as that thought is coming through. I have to take an immediate action, whatever that may be. We won't get into that now, but just recognizing that is so critical. Whereas over and over and over, I heard just this hopeless, almost, I can't even begin to deal with, what's going to trigger me. I can't go to the mall. I can't go to a show. I don't know. What if I went to a ball game and somebody served a beer? And so it's like not understanding this then just sequesters them in a place of I'm petrified because I don't know what it's going to be. I agree with them. But at the same time, I go to a game and somebody's drinking beer and I can see it, I can smell it. It's hitting my senses. Okay, what have I already identified? Okay, that's the obsession. I better hold on to the person that's with me. I better go take my next action step. Do I need to, remove myself? Do I need to, whatever that may be. But understanding that obsession is absolutely critical. And this is where we do understand it.
Absolutely. As you're saying that, I'm thinking of this paranoia that one might have with the outside world, that I can't go anywhere because there will be a trigger or there might be a trigger. And the reality is we have to be able, when we're ready, when we're capable, we have to be able to live our lives with those response plans in place, with coping skills in place, with a support team and those kinds of things. To not just always run away from a triggering event, a triggering situation, or whatever it is, but to recognize, like you said, when it activates the allergy, that's where we're in that space of it's go time. We've got to do something about it.
Now, you just said something really important. You said activate the allergy. And here's the other part of this. And we'll study it, but the allergy is not activated until it hits my tongue. At least according to the context of the Big Book. I personally agree with that. Prior to that, it's all obsession of the mind. So the two questions that beg asking is, why can't I drink like I used to? And why can't I stop when I start? The one is the obsession of the mind. It's always telling me I've got to go, I've got to get some, I got to do it now.
Yep.
Why can't I stop when I start? Because once that drop or that drug or that hit hits my system, now it's all bets are off. Now the allergy hits. The allergy doesn't hit the brain through a thought, it hits it through a physical taking on a drug, a drink, or whatever. And how many times have we said, I'm just going to have 2, I'll just have 1. Well, pills weren't my problem. Alcohol was, so I can take a pain pill. Alcohol wasn't my problem. Pills were, so I can have a drink of wine. And once it's in there, it just ignites all of those systems, and away we go. And I know I'm bringing up all kinds of things. You know, people may have issues, they may have questions, they may disagree wholeheartedly. What I'm talking about comes from my own personal experience. Also, you know, working in this field for, you know, a quarter of a century, and watching and talking to people and saying, what happened? What happened just before you took the drink? What were you thinking? And then what happened afterwards? And the obsession of the mind doesn't stop when the allergy kicks in. So I drink one, and you know, the big book's full of stories. Well, you know, hey, I put some with my milk. That went pretty well. That's the obsession of the mind. The real key is, and this is a fascinating exercise, is to go back to your own history. And if you can, with a pad of paper and a pen, sit down and identify how your alcoholic or addicted brain speaks to you. What levers, how clever is it? What leverage does it use? It will use anything. It'll use a newborn baby. It'll use, in my case, it used the death of, or a situation with my mother. And then, you know, she was in the hospital. And I mean, it's fascinating. And maybe we'll get into that more later. But if someone would really sit down and be diligent about identifying, not revisionist history, not what you want to have happened, what really did happen? What is the truth about? Just pick a time that you said, I'm not going to drink, and then go back and write down the thoughts that came through your head. Just list them. And then when you decided to drink, then what were the thoughts after and what took place? And if you do that over and over, I had a fellow help me do that. It was shocking. And what I will say, the reason this doctor's opinion is so critical is because when I went back and did that, and I looked at the list, excuse me, the list of thoughts that I had before I drank when I did not want to, or I was defending against it, I didn't have a chance. The number of thoughts, the speed at which they came, and how diverse they were. And what I will tell you is what I have seen when I've interviewed, I don't know, hundreds of people. When we talk about the diversity and the cleverness of the obsession of the alcoholic mind, it is something to behold. Now here's a bizarre thought. If I could take that same cleverness and ingenuity and just pivot it and say, go build a business or go to... So that's what we're really trying to do, is harness all parts of my brain. Once I can get past that obsession for alcohol or drugs, it's still my brain. If I can repurpose it, and that's for another time. I'm just lobbing some grenades out there.
Absolutely. But, and we want that. We want our listeners to be personalizing this stuff that we talk about as we read, as we share our own stories, because along the way, this has to be different than I'm just reading a book. I need the application. We need the application. Our listeners need the application, because one of our goals is to get through this content and understand it and comprehend it and know what its purpose is. And more importantly, I think, what our purpose in our own individual lives, our own individual recoveries, personal transformations, trying to accomplish goals, our relationships, how we interact with other people, and those kinds of things. So thank you for that discussion, and hopefully that's got the juices flowing mentally for our people. So anything else before we dive in here to the doctor's opinion? Anything else of note?
Yeah, I think historically what becomes really precedent making in what we're about to jump into is there's another figure in AA, his name is Dr. Bob, that absolutely knew a lot of the foundation involved in what the book itself actually talks about. The one piece that was elusive to him that kept getting him back to drinking is what we've been talking about, is this obsession of the mind. No one explained to him what the problem was. And when Bill and Bob got together, they sat down for over 3 hours, their first meeting, and that's all they did. They described what the problem was, and Dr. Bob had never had anybody explain that to him. And once that occurred, his whole recovery changed, because he wasn't doing the yo-yo anymore. He understood what the problem was. That's what we're going to go over today. Then actually what the next phase of the book does is it tells us what the solution is, and that's where like the rubber is going to hit the road. That's literally what Bill provided Bob, and Bob provided Bill, is like stability and like providing a network of accountability involved in the process we're about to go through.
Okay, well, let's take it away.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read a page, and if anything stands out, we'll jump right into it.
Okay.
Let's make a comment after the first paragraph.
Yeah. Okay. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in the medical establishment of the plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who have had experience with the suffering of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcohol and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. Okay, so that's the first paragraph.
So this is called the doctor's opinion. Why is it an opinion? Because when he wrote it, he knew, and this is Dr. Silkworth, William D. Silkworth, and he said, you can put this in, but I want it as opinion, because of what was stated was not popular medical parlance at the time. But put it in as my opinion. It's now been regarded, it's still called the opinion, but the facts are the facts. Mm-hmm. And here's another piece that's important. Joe just read, a well-known doctor. Just down, it says, to whom it may concern. And he starts off with, I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. This is one letter, and later you flip over the page, they ask him to write another one, and he says, I say this after many years' experience as a medical director of one of the oldest hospitals treating alcoholic and drug addiction. The reason I think this is important is this is not a guy who treated one or two people. He is steeped in the treatment of alcoholics. That's all he did. In fact, he was a very wealthy doctor, and then with the crash, he lost all of it, and so he went to the town's hospital and worked for pittance and helped alcoholics. This is all he did all day long. And so I think it's important to say, and I've used this little metaphor many, many times to put this in perspective, because we could say, yeah, but this happened in the 30s. And my position is, well, has alcohol changed from 1930 to 2023?
No.
I believe that the marketing of it has changed, the labels of it have changed, but the actual content inside the bottle is the same.
Yep.
More importantly, what alcohol did to the human body, specifically the human brain in the 30s, does it do that same thing today in 2023?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. Absolutely. And so I would just submit that what this doctor has to say after treating hundreds and hundreds, I don't know if it's thousands, but it's more than most of us would ever care to imagine.
Yeah.
If what he has to say meant something then, I believe it's still to be true today. And that's I think a major point.
Absolutely. Okay, you want to keep going, Joe?
Sure. To whom it may concern, I've specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I had come to regard as hopeless. Now, I find that very, very interesting. He's identifying classes of alcoholism right from the beginning. And this one is he's saying it's hopeless. And that's going to kind of set a framework for kind of what we're going into, because this book wasn't just written for somebody that has a little problem with alcohol. It's written for somebody who is of the hopeless variety. So we'll get into that as we go on. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has been the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. Okay, and that's also interesting right there. That word recovered, it doesn't say that they've still got a problem and stuff like that. They've recovered from a condition that we're about to get into momentarily. So we need to also reemphasize that. What is this state of recovery that we're talking about, and what have they recovered from? So I personally know scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of their extraordinary possibility of rapid growth inherent in this group. They may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. Yours very truly, William D. Silkworth, MD. Now, what's interesting about this part of the letter compared to the first edition, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is he didn't even want his name associated with the doctor's opinion initially at first.
No, that's right.
Because of the controversy.
Right. Controversy, and the answer is no, and then agreed to do it. We asked later if we call it an opinion.
Right.
Not a fact.
Right.
And isn't that interesting that he would want, after having worked with that many people, having seen what he had saw,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Still, jury's out. I'm not. Mm-hmm. I don't know that there was a man walking that had more history, more. I mean, he had seen hundreds and hundreds, and worked with them, to the point where he had categories, the hopeless variety, and so. What's powerful about that? They're hopeless. He can identify the problem, but by the hopeless use of the word hopeless, he doesn't have the solution yet.
Right.
He's got the problem
dialed in. Yeah.
And so it was later we'll read about Dr. Jung and others who created the solution, and so it took this coalescing of the two pieces.
So is this a humility thing? I don't want to be associated with it, or is this I understand the pushback against this in society. I understand how unpopular this opinion is, and I don't want the blowback that I anticipate coming from if I say this and I'm on record, whether that be medical boards, whether that be social interactions or something along those lines.
I'll add a perspective, because I don't know how long he did this. Was it 30 years, 40 years? Don't know. Personally, I have 25 years working in the field, direct in the field. I mean, person, mano a mano. And I can tell you, I can remember as if it were yesterday when the first resident that I had interacted with and worked with, and I'm not a counselor, I'm an administrator, but we were hands-on deep into it because, we didn't have many people. I was the first employee, and then there were two after, a counselor and a woman that could cook. And so if something went south, I was there 14 hours a day. And I remember when our first fellow, I had to take him up to uni. I had to haul him out in my car to my truck in my arms. And later he passed. And I know what that felt like. And there was part of me that says, I want to shut this thing down. I can't take this again. Mm-hmm. I can't watch the absolute of the hopeless variety. I can't watch the demise of another human being in my hands. I can't. I'm not saying he died in my hand, but I can't watch this. I can't call the family. I'm out. Well, obviously I didn't do that, but the perspective I'm offering, Chris, is that after all this time, I'm thinking how many had he seen die?
Right.
And he could identify it. He could see the problem. It's just, and as a medical profession, professional, how do I solve this? My job is to preserve life, to give, and I can't do it. And how many? And I'm surmising now. I'm just putting my mindset back into trying to figure out what and just not wanting to see that anymore. And just at this point, and I don't go out in public, and I don't talk a lot about it. And I don't talk about those that didn't make it, and I don't talk about those that do make it, because I never know. And you can't take credit for those that make it just as much as you don't want to take the blame for those that didn't. It just takes a hit on the human heart. So I can see where he would have said, you know what?
Yep.
I know what I know, and I've got my both hands on the oars, and I'm working and picking and shoveling, and I'm figuring this out. But I'm just going to stay in the wings and continue to do my work. But I can't afford to have this go out back then in the news, and I don't want the blowback because I don't have an answer yet, and I'm doing the best I can with what I've got.
Yeah,
that's the way I would see it.
Absolutely, I love that. Okay, I'll pick up reading if that's okay.
Yeah.
The physician who, at our request, gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us. But we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcohol which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete.
So this is the first time that we get a clear perspective that what we're dealing with is a condition of mind and body and he clearly states us that we must believe that it's not just a mental issue. There's a physical component that's playing out here. I think that's beautiful, because most people just see it as like an issue of the mind or self-will, and it's much more complex than that.
Hence, just quit.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he just quit? Well, I wished I'd have heard those words. I sure would have quit. If somebody told me, Dave, just quit. Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Didn't realize it was going to be that simple. Huh? Where were you? That advice, man, that $1 million, $1 billion advice. Just stop it.
Just stop it.
Right. So we understand that complexity. We understand, or we're beginning to understand, the complexity that it's not just a matter of willpower. I've just made a decision today.
Yeah.
I don't want the consequences of this anymore. So I've made my choice. Never again. And I'm sure down the road we'll have our own experiences of when we've said, I'm never doing that again. Never again.
Well, and let me take the other side of the coin, because how many times have I heard over my career, and we'll hear it many, many times, well, I know somebody that just quit, went cold turkey. I happen to know a guy that did that too in my family. He didn't drink like me. And I won't argue whether he was alcoholic or not, or anybody else.
Yeah.
But that argument, well, they just quit. They just made a decision and they just stopped. Okay. And then what? Did they become a white knuckle drunk? Or what does that look like? And why can they just quit, and why can't you, Dave? Why can't you be like that? And my answer was, I'm not like that. I don't know, and I don't have a problem. There's the first issue. Alcohol is not a problem for me. Never has been, never will be. That was just ego. But yeah, there's no question. And a little later on in the book, we will talk about and discuss, I'll use different levels of the alcoholic. And of course there are people who, I mean, I've drank with friends and people that, they have 1.5 and they're done. They don't, it's kind of like, wow, they're that tipsy, kind of out of control feeling. They want to go home. After a couple or 3 or 6, I mean, I get juiced, man. My adrenaline kicks in. I say, let's go do something. Let's tip over buses. Push over a building. I go, come on, the night's young. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to get too far into that yet, but when you bring up that just just stop. Yeah, that was proposed to me as well.
All the insanity.
Okay.
All right, the doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion is to its soundest may, of course, mean little. But as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as the altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. That one's interesting to me. You're grinning as we think back to our loved ones or ourselves or those that we've interacted with who were not in a well state of mind, a healthy, calm.
Brain wasn't clear?
Absolutely. And we want to have these conversations, and what are we met with? What kind of a response?
Well, it's fascinating. It's unleashed. But do we know why? Why is talking to a drunk person or a high person an exercise in absolute frustration? From their, from the human, from the family or friend side, of course, they don't make any sense. But why is it such a difficulty for the person, the identified addict or alcoholic?
Because when you're in that altered state, you're not wanting to remove yourself from that unique, euphoric experience of like feeling good.
Well, what if I feel horrible when I'm drunk?
Well, then there's also that quality of like what does the obsession and the allergy actually do to us? Because I mean I had some severe problems with side effects from drinking, and you know what? It never stopped me. So the real issue is like, why even in the face of like all of the significance of like the pain associated with alcoholism, I mean like real true alcoholism, do people still go on and continue to abuse alcohol and like have the effects within themselves, and then have all the relationship wreckage and all of the financial wreckage? Why do you continue to do that? There's a quality about that we haven't gotten into, but we will be getting into that shortly.
Yeah. It's called, for lack of a better phrase, I use the phrase revisionist history.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that. No, I did not. That's not the way it is. That's not the way I see it. And my job as the identified alcoholic, when I'm in the midst of it, the only thing that's important is to deflect what you're coming at me with and send it over there so I can get back to
doing what I
I'm
do.
doing.
Yep.
And deep down, and I won't speak for another human being, another person, I'll only speak for myself. Deep down, I knew what I was doing was wrong, and eventually, I guess I just accepted the fact that it was just part of me. So don't question it. Don't come to me with, an argument. Here's the evidence of a problem. Don't do that. I would deflect. But I became a master of the Jedi, duck and weave. And if it just went by even that close, if it singed my hair, it didn't matter. It went by, and then I could parry and keep going.
That's making me think of almost an increase, a false increase in my ability, my capacity to continue doing this thing that everyone's telling me is going to kill me, or that is risking my livelihood, the things I care about, my family, my success, and those kinds of things. That, well, you're saying I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
But I can. I'm invincible. And it almost gives perhaps this false sense of capability, invincibility.
Oh, absolutely.
And you also said something else that made me think about shame. So in my mind, I know what I'm doing is wrong, unhealthy, not my best, not within my value system, so on and so forth. I can't look at these people, these loved ones, and admit it for fear of disappointment. And I don't mean that I'm disappointed. Disappointment to the core.
Yeah.
And the shame that exists when we go from doing something disappointing to being a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
So that shame level goes up in such dramatic fashion that no longer are we thinking, what's the next best thing? How can I get well? How can I take care of this? It's, I can't handle this. I need to get drunk. I need to get high. I need to get away.
Mm-hmm.
I need something. What were you going to say?
Well, there's an element that it goes back to that second question that I posed. Why can't I stop when I start? Now, nobody else knows that. We don't advertise that. We don't say, hey, I'm just going to have 2 and then I'm going to leave. We might to someone, but then
Sure.
they leave and I'm still sitting there.
Right.
Or in my case, I didn't go to bars because you had to order it by the drink. I ordered it by the bottle and just bought a bottle. And I learned early on when I asked people, do you understand the purpose of the bottle cap on a fifth of whiskey or a handle, whatever size it is? What is the purpose of the cap?
To go back on?
No, to get it from the liquor store to my vehicle. That's it. What happens to the cap after it's in my vehicle?
It's off the bottle.
It's gone. That's a sure sign. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to drink I just want a drink. I just want a couple. And then I will screw the lid back on. And I'm the only one that knows that I didn't do that over and over. I don't have to advertise that. I would never say that. But then you're coming at me saying, Dave, why are you doing this? You see, you're adding already on to a shame-filled human being that said, why can't I? Okay, it's a new week, it's a new month, it's a new year. I'm just going to buy pints. Well, I better get 6 of them. Or I got to make it before, it closes. Or, I've got to go to a different county. Whatever reason, to get more. But I'm the one that knows that I can't stop, even though I've said in ironclad words and pounded my fist, 2 drinks and I'm done, 2 swallows and I'm done, 1 tumbler and I'm done. It never happened. So I've already got this huge amount of shame and I couldn't manage it in there, and then here comes all the external stuff. So we're just layering on top of the other. And why am I sitting in this parking lot? Where's my truck? Where is it? Where's my wallet? I don't even know where I am right now. That just heaps and heaps, and it's like, man, okay, next time. That was an abnormal situation. It was a Tuesday, and I'd eaten that pizza thing, and so that was the circumstance. Tomorrow will be different, and yet there I am again. And so that's that allergy, is once it gets in there. And I remember a fellow asking me, Dave, have you ever had enough? Have you ever drank to your satisfaction? And I just sat there. And he said,
that's a loaded question.
By your pondering, you're telling me no, that you never had enough. That no matter the condition, no matter the circumstance, the allergy kicked in so thoroughly and so deeply that you never quit and said, hey, I'm good. I'll pass.
Yeah.
No. Until gone and couldn't get more, or passed out, or, whatever it was. And so it's imperative that we really understand how this allergy works, and the question that we ask is, why can't I stop? We're going to talk more about that, but I just wanted to put that out there, because you're talking about this shame and people coming at me, and they're pouring questions, well placed, well intended, but they're pouring on a hot bed of coals, man. And the only way I know how to get rid of this pain, the only way I know how, is to drink more and just go into oblivion. And so the normal person would say, well, if I give you a litany of reasons and all this evidence, you will stop. And I look at that and I say, all of that stuff, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to drink all of that away. It'll all go away tomorrow.
So that's why we're invited to. I mean, this is like the first time really in the Big Book that we're invited, that the people that we approach with the message of this thing called recovery, they have to be clear of the fog of like being right in the middle of their drinking, because without it, it's not going to absorb, and you're wasting your time.
Yeah, go ahead and try to talk reason to me when I'm drunk.
Right.
Good luck with that one.
But we still do it.
Yeah.
We still try.
Absolutely do.
We still try. And as much as I want to think, well, I know better, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still do it. Well, maybe he's in there somewhere. Maybe I'm planting seeds. Possibly. But odds are I'm burning myself out, irritating myself over time, and irritating them, increasing that shame base,
right.
Increasing that frustration, resistance, stress level.
You buy a better pair of house slippers so you can tiptoe around the drunk better. We don't want to wake it up, and then I got to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Close the door softly.
All right. Who wants to read this next? The doctor writes.
The subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as a medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages. I think that's important. It's masterly detailed in these pages. The doctor's saying, pay attention, read what is in this book. We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. I will repeat, we doctors believe that an urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented, what's he saying there? He's saying we don't have a clue as to how to fix this.
Right.
Yep.
After decades of doing this work beyond our conception, what with our ultra modern, and this is in the 30s, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. What is he alluding to? He's teeing us up that something bigger and broader and more depth and maybe of a outside their synthetic knowledge, that this is bigger than them. What he's about to disclose and what will come in the book is well beyond what the medical profession at the time or even today would accept as the answer. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. Some ideas. Later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving, we consented. So here's the first time we hear that, hey, one alcoholic talking to another might have something there. Now, they're not sure, because the age-old thing is, if I go into a hospital for alcoholism or drug addiction, I might learn how to do it better. If I go into prison, I'll learn how to be a better thug. And so, of course, they have some misgiving. Well, we're not sure what's going to happen. But at the same time, he's saying what we're doing isn't working. This guy seems to have some ideas, and that's as far as he went with it. He's got some ideas, and now he wants to share them. Okay, let's see what happens. The cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men, as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one as labored and long and wearily in this alcoholic field. Wait a minute. Unselfishness? Who's more selfish than the active alcoholic? It's all about me. I will burn up every last cent I have, torch all my resources, burn my house to the ground, and yours if I need to. And he's talking about unselfishness. So he's seeing a complete shift in the alcoholic mannerism.
Right, yep.
I'm seeing unselfishness, the entire absence of profit motive and their community spirit. Whoa, wait a minute. Alcoholics are completely in isolation. in the end stages, we're not out drinking with
Right.
people.
Yeah.
We're home alone. We're hiding. No caps on bottles. In my case, no clothing. Smelling wretched. There's no social aspect to it at all. So he's seeing a community spirit. It's indeed inspiring. And he reminds us, to one has labored long and wearily. Why does he put that word in there? In this alcoholic field, why did he put the word wearily? He's been doing this a long time, man. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired of burying
He's
people.
worn out. Yeah.
I'm worn out. And rightfully so. You've been seeing and dealing with this. You can see there's the issue. You just don't have a solution.
Well, you work in this field long enough, you're going to get that weirdly feeling. It's called burnout.
Yeah.
Well, and where does that come from?
You know?
I think it comes in a variety of ways, variety of reasons, but the discouragement of, just like you described before, carrying this man out to go to the hospital, carrying this person out to go get additional care, this person who later dies, the people that we see who do not make it, the discouragement, the utter depression, the angst that comes from seeing a human life end, a human life be destroyed because of this.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting there and they're describing, and I've had this experience. Dave, can you see those spiders? Look at the size of those spiders crawling down the wall. Dave, what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of them? Did you bring a gun? We need a club. No, we're good. Don't worry, you know? So yeah, wearily, why did he choose that? Well, he's telling us. So they believe in themselves and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Now, I circled in my book that word power. He distilled this down to one word, more in the power which pulls these alcoholics back from the gates of death. Well, this word power, we ought to look into that. You know, he's written it down. It's in his opinion, but it would behoove us to dig in there. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving for liquor. And this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. I'm going to pause there for a minute. Chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy. Why did he pick is that the first time we pick up the word allergy?
No, the first time was actually mentioned before the doctor's letter.
We have an allergy. So now he's digging into it a little deeper. Why does he use the word allergy before? Why does he use it now? I think it behooves us to understand the word allergy.
Well, the fact that he calls it a manifestation of an allergy is even deeper than what we can understand. It's like, before, was there not a manifestation, and then all of a sudden there is manifestation? What's the difference? Why is it showing up now instead of not before? Because this is where it gets interesting, is like you follow through with his course of thinking in there, and then he also assists us to define it even further, and he says the phenomena of craving is limited to this class. Now, that class is like the true alcoholic. It's not somebody that might be a heavy drinker. It's somebody that really has lost control.
So I'm going to throw it out again. What is an allergy? Why do I personally say that I have an allergy to alcohol? What do I mean by that? What is, if you said, Siri, what's an allergy mean? What does it
reaction
mean?
Yeah,
it's
a physical reaction to a substance that is like typically toxic within the system, and the system reacts to get it out.
Okay. So we would say an allergy is an adverse reaction to a foreign substance.
Right.
Okay. So Simple matter. Why would we use that to alcohol? Because, let me put it in this way. So my wife's a kindergarten teacher. Every year, get new students. Every year she gets a litany of lists of the allergies that these kids have. And let's just pick one. Let's just pick peanuts. This little boy's allergic to peanuts. If he eats peanuts, what happens?
He's going to have a reaction.
He's going to have a reaction.
Right.
So what do we do if he eats peanuts? Do we give him more peanuts?
No.
Because
the reaction is going to get
make
worse.
it worse.
Yeah.
So typically you would say that an allergy is an adverse reaction to a foreign substance. I'm going to take on alcohol. I'm allergic to alcohol. It's an adverse reaction. But here's the difference, and this is critical. The difference, in my opinion, this is just Dave. When I take on alcohol and I have some sort of reaction, I don't say, hey, no more alcohol for me. My adverse reaction is, bring it on. Again, why can't I stop when I want to? Give me more. And how much more? And one fellow, he used an example, he's walking out and he got hit and he was laying there and he was drunk and he was laying there in the street and they said, here, let us help you. How can we help you? And have you got a drink? And I remember situations where no matter how bad it was, just give me my bottle. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter what happened. It was the solution to every situation. That's an adverse reaction. But we don't think of it because when you think of allergy and peanuts, you say,
there's specifics.
There's logic.
Right.
There's logic.
There's common sense.
There's common sense. I'm allergic. What happened? What's the adverse reaction? I want more. Well, how much more? All you got and more. As much as there is.
Bottomless pit.
Yes. And so that's how we would explain the allergy when it comes to why can't I quit when I want to? Why can't I stop when I say? Because you have an allergy. And once it hits and we go on and he'll talk about it a little bit more, but this is an important sentence. These allergic types, if we substitute allergic for, he's now said chronic alcoholics and allergic types are one and the same, right?
Yeah.
So these chronic alcoholics / allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. What does that mean?
They can't. They cannot manage or maintain a normal, let's say, relationship with, say, alcohol or anybody else, because everything goes south once they put it in their system, because it's always going to wind up being more.
Okay. So why does he say in any form at all?
Well, I'm going to just drink.
I'm only going to have one shot.
Soft beer.
Right.
I'm going to just. I'm going to swallow a little bit of my mouthwash. I'm just going to drink near beer. I'm not going to go back to the hard stuff. I'm not going to have 4 drinks anymore. I'm not going to have 10 drinks anymore. Just going to do a little bit. Just some champagne. Just some wine.
Exactly. Or what about the time element?
No, a year.
A year. So I had a guy come to me and he said, hey, Dave, I'll ask you a question. He said, what would you think about me after a year's time going down to the pub and having a burger, watching the game, and having a beer? And I said, why are you asking me what I think? And he said, well, I just want to know what you think about that. And I said, what do you think about that? It's irrelevant what I think. What do you think about that? What is your logic?
Mm-hmm.
I said, have you ever done that? And he said, done what? Go down to the pub and have a beer and a burger. He said, all the time. I said, listen to the question. Have you gone to the pub and had a beer and a burger? How many burgers did you have when you had that beer? I had 1. How many beers typically go with that burger?
The number just keeps rising.
How many fingers do you got?
You can't count them because you were there all night.
Right.
And you had beer for breakfast. I said, you're asking me to opine on a situation that's never happened. What makes you believe that you can do that? Did you ever go in there with the idea, I'm going to just sit down and watch the game with my friends, have a burger because it's dinner time, and have a couple of beers and go home? I said, did you ever think that? And he said, all the time. I said, did it ever happen? The answer is no, it did not. Otherwise, I wouldn't know you.
Right.
You're a chronic alcoholic.
Yeah.
I said, what you're assuming is that over time, your allergic condition will be mitigated by the passage of time.
Yeah.
And I said, there is a disgusting, and I hate it, cliche that's in the rooms, and I heard it when I was young, and I still despise it, that my disease is over there doing push-ups. I said, I don't even know what that means. But I said, I experimented. I can tell you firsthand, I had 2 years, well over 2 years of rock solid sobriety, not recovery, rock solid sobriety. And the first time I went to have a beer, I said it was a case, and then it was 2 days, and then I don't know how many days I was out. I forgot. I don't know. And I said, so don't mistake time for strength against the allergy.
Yeah.
I said, just the passage of time. And then he said, are you telling me you still have the compulsion to drink? And I said, no, I don't. But that's not because it's time. That's because there's been 10 mountains of work that's been done and shifting inside. It's not just the passage of time.
But what's interesting about that is that for some people that are asking for that concept of like, what exactly did you have to do? They're lost when we try to explain to them that some of that is like really personal inward work, and it doesn't apply to their story.
Right.
You know, and that's where a lot of this becomes really complicated, is because my story doesn't apply to everybody's story. You know, and that's the beautiful complexity of like the solution as well. It's like there's a part of it that's personalized to everybody, but are they willing to do the work necessary to actually figure out how to actually get out from underneath this allergic phenomena of craving that really just puts them in a bind? Because, I mean, later on we're going to get into what is the bind. You know, I mean, we're almost there, but I mean, the doctor does a lovely job of like really defining that for us.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I pointed out to this gentleman, I said, if you're snooping and sniffing and browsing about to try to find a way to still drink, all bets are off. Right. I said, here's the deal, man. You're going to drink. You're just not done. And he said, well, I just love to go to the pub and all. I said, no. You love to go there and drink. Let's just call it. At least don't lie to me.
Right.
You just love to drink, okay? And if you're not done, that's none of my business. Go ahead and drink. But be careful, be very wary of posing and saying, well, if I do this, if I do that, or what time, or this effort, or if I do the steps, or whatever. But way back in your mind, there's this little trap door, and and only you will craft the door and build it. And it's the door you will go through when the circumstances are just so that you can drink. If your trap door exists, and it does. I said, yours not even a trap door. I said, it's a big gaping double wide. You're just going to go drink. And he said, how can you say that? And I said, you're telling me you're going to. What do you mean, how can I? I don't have to predict it. You're telling me after X. And I said, you think it's a year? That's what you're saying today? I said, the way this thing works, the obsession of the mind, it's how about a week?
You're going next week.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to get home, and the first place I'm going is I'm going to go watch the game at the pub.
Let's not overreact and go for a year. I mean, come on, we got this. Let's go next week.
You know, I'm thinking of the okayness of grieving that I can't go to the pub to watch the game anymore. Now, in a circumstance where maybe prior to the onset of alcoholism, the thing that switched, the switch that got flipped, right? When it went from, I just went and I had that burger and fries and I had the beer and that was it. And then when it went into the next realm of things where it was about 10 beers or 20 beers or whatever it was, okay? It's okay to grieve. I just can't do that anymore. I know how that ends up. Yeah, there was a time where I was with the guys, or I was with my boys, or I was with whatever it was. And the celebration, the togetherness, that's what meant something to me. But in time, it changed to where that was no longer the focus. That was no longer the intention. That was no longer what I was seeking. It's okay to say, that really sucks. It's okay to grieve that. Now, where can I find that connection that's not at the pub, that's not at the bar, that's not at wherever it is, where I end up bad, sick, and wrong, where I end up in the gutter, where I end up behind the wheel, with a blood alcohol concentration that we don't want to fathom, without the consequences, because we need the connection. So what I'm suggesting is it's okay to grieve that, yeah, it really sucks, I can't go there anymore.
Yeah.
I've got to figure something else out. But we'll use that as the in. But I'm just going to go with the buddies. I'm just going to go, it's with my boys, it's with my team, my whatever it is. But we know what we're actually seeking.
Right.
So that's a ruse. That's a myth that I'm going to be able to go back to that place and behave differently than what my most recent history has suggested. Go ahead.
What you're talking about is the revisionist history.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rewriting history to suit my own desire today. It doesn't matter what actually happened. That's why talking to other human beings and getting the truth, one of the most powerful experiences I had, and it happened more than once, is when a fellow sat down and said to me, "Are you capable?" And the answer is yes, Dave. I don't know if you're willing, but you are capable of telling the truth about your drinking. You just aren't willing to do it yet. Because what, in your mind, what your drinking is, it's always back having a burger and a beer, whatever the scenario was, and everybody was laughing and it was great, and you were telling jokes, and after a beer or two, somehow you were the comic. You even thought you could sing, But if you talk to others, that was a short period of time, and then what really happened was this. So you're overlooking, you're leapfrogging, the truth of a long time for this little tiny piece. And you're right, Chris. We look at that and we say, that's my in. I want to go back to that. No, there is no party anymore. When you look at your current drinking, they're not making TV ads about it. They're not filming you. Not everybody's tan and happy and
Right.
Everything's in order. No, that's not the way it is.
You see these memes and these pictures of a side-by-side comparison, and the left side typically says something about my Instagram photo or my online photo, and it's glamorous, it's attractive, it's something to behold. And then the one on the right hand side says something like reality, and it's embarrassing. It's not something to be proud of. It's not something that we'd necessarily aspire to be. And in my mind, I'm just kind of envisioning that same thing. I had a couple of drinks at the party, and it was great. It was glamorous. I was hilarious. I was all of these things. A singer, like you said, Dave. And then everybody else, what their recollection is more on that right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's absence or me stumbling in the corner and tripping and doing things that are embarrassing and all of that.
Well, I might add too, there's an inverse relationship between the reality and what we are. And I would submit this, that we as addicts, alcoholics, are the most creative, the most dedicated to our story. No matter the detail, we embellish, we will revise history, we will add things that weren't, and so the more destitute, the worse it gets, the bigger my story is. So my story goes up, and the truth of who I am, that there's an inverse relationship there. And I've often said, I don't ever want to take away the inspiration, the creativity of the addict alcoholic. We just want to repurpose it, redirect it, and say, hey, wait a minute, could I put as much effort into studying these principles, these ideas, as I did in crafting the lies that I did as the CEO of my drinking, and I was trying to manage it all, and you got to know a little bit, and you got to know a little bit, but nobody knew the whole story, and then it all imploded, and I can tell stories about, coming home and my wife looking at me, and one time she just looked at me and said, "Stop. Do you really think, David, that I believe what you're saying right now?" And I had a decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
Do I continue with my story, or do I just say, you know what, you're right, I'm lying, and then because then life starts. Not me. No, I doubled down. I quadrupled down. Oh, you're questioning me. Oh man, I'm just getting warmed up. I mean, I got BS. I got truckfuls of it, and just went at it more adamantly. And that's what we do until we get to the point where we just say enough's enough.
So on that thought, I want to continue jumping into this, because this is where it really starts getting into that aspect of it. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, their problems pile up upon them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideals must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. And with that being said, I want to just add a thought to that. When it's talking about this message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight, I believe what is meant by that word hold is to keep us together. So when we're really looking at it, the depth of this message, the way it's been described to me, the way that I've looked at it in the past, and the way that I've described it to other people is like, how deep and how wide can you imagine your higher power to be? That's what we have to really look forward to. That's what we get to dig into if we're willing to do the work, because that's the thing that's going to hold us together. What's interesting in that is if we continue, it says this: if any feel that as a psychiatrist directing a hospital for alcoholics, we appear somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us in the firing line, see the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become a part of their daily work, even of their sleeping moments, and the most cynical will not wonder that we have accepted and encouraged this movement. We feel, after many years of experience, that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men and the altruistic movement now growing up among them. That is a huge statement from a doctor who's dedicated his life to this, and he's saying, I have not seen anything that has worked more profoundly in the lives of these men and women than this movement. That is huge.
Yeah, he's talking about the tragedies and all of it. I also want to point out something that you read in that paragraph before. I've got it circled. It's the last part of that sentence. If he's talking about the emotional appeal and the weight of the message. If they are to recreate their lives. Now, this is a doctor, and then he goes on to say, hey, stand with us and see the disaster.
Yeah.
But he's already said, if they are to recreate. So I want to emphasize that. This is no small thing. This is not just a 10-degree shift. This is not a trajectory shift, a vector change of any small deal. This is a recreation of life.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, and I will testify to that. That we do things completely different. Our eyes see things different. Our hearts are different. It's a complete shift. And I might add, it takes a lot of guts and grit and courage to have the life that you never even dreamed could exist. Now, a little later on in the book, it talks about the promises. What's in it for me? Why would I want to recreate my life, Dave? Well, I don't know, because maybe mine's in the gutter. Maybe I've been kicked out of and thrown off, and I don't have work. I was kicked out of college and football and everything. I've been fired. I mean, wow. I need to recreate something or I'm going to have nothing.
Right.
So let's not underestimate, and this is, am I saying this is impossible? For heaven's sake, no. Many have gone before us.
Right.
That's the beauty of it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just have to reach out and put your hand in someone's hand who's been there and say, hey, how do I do this? But I just want to emphasize that word recreate. We're in the business of completely redoing my life. Now, that's not to say I'm quitting my work, divorcing my family, that sort of thing. It's a recreation from the inside out.
Okay, so from there we get to jump into this other kind of picture. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Now that's profound. They're saying that state of discontent and irritability is immediately resolved the minute they start drinking. So that sense of ease and comfort comes at once by taking a few drinks. So that sense of irritability and discontentedness gets resolved, and that's the real allure of alcohol. Unfortunately, with all of us, is that it works so efficiently. Okay, but again, it's not the problem.
And then we say what? Hey, look what a couple did for me.
Yeah.
And I feel good now. I'm relaxed.
Yep.
Well, more ought to work even
Right.
better.
Yeah.
One's good, 50's better.
Yeah.
Yep. So
How long are we going, Chris?
Probably got another 10 or 15 minutes.
okay.
Well, I just want to say the true from the false.
Yep.
That's critical. Again, there's no one better than revisionist history and changing what happened. And that's what drives families and people so crazy. I was there.
Yeah.
That's not what happened, Dave. Yes, it is. I know exactly. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's false. I learned to lie. I would lie when the truth sounded better.
Yes.
Why?
Yep.
Because
Right.
I need to stay sharp on my game. I need to make sure that you don't know. Nobody gets to know the whole story. And it's all true to me. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
whether it's true or false to the onlooker. It's all true to me. And so families look and they say, why would they do that to loved ones?
Yep.
We love them. We support them precisely. And I'm going to take full advantage of your love for me. Now you're talking about a deceitful kind of a person.
Right.
Yes, you are. You're talking about me. I will take advantage of you. I will lie to you. Why? Because you gave me money. And if I keep the story going, you will give me more. And you will fix that broken truck or whatever, or take care of this or that. It doesn't matter. Of course. So we need to be clear in saying, I can't differentiate the true from the false. It does not differentiate between family or otherwise. I will take advantage of everybody at all costs. And relationships will be used to my alcoholic advantage. And if you love me, even better. I can take full advantage. And then someone's going to say, well, that's not me. And it's all good. Okay, great. But that was me. And so, if you identify with what I'm saying, so
There's a different meaning, I think, as you were approaching this, but it just strikes me as that's not me, meaning I'm not myself. That person I become, that's not me. That's not who I am. And I'll agree with that. But it's who you've become. It's what your actions are telling us. And so no moral high ground of, yeah, but that's not my real character. And so we'll have to excuse my behaviors. No. We've got to have accountability here. Because until that takes place, this isn't going to change. Well,
boy, there's a lot of stuff to cover.
there so is. How do we, this stuff that we've read so far, the things that we've discussed, does anything need to be clarified for our listener before we conclude this particular segment?
I would probably go back and revisit the obsession of the mind versus the allergy. So everything leading up to the drink is the obsession of the mind. That's the alcoholic brain convincing, contriving whatever it's going to take. And you say, but Dave, that's my own brain. Yes, it is. and it's been introduced to a mind-altering substance. When as soon as you drink, you change the chemicals in your body. I won't get into the detail of all that, but and there's a reason why some of us do very, very differently in the way our body is made up and what the alcohol does. But I think we need to be careful and say the obsession of the mind, what that does is it creates a scenario where no matter what the circumstance is, it's okay to drink. And it's the right thing, and you deserve it. And it's been this long, and you're okay, no matter how it's framed. And I would once again go back and invite people to sit down privately if you choose. That's fine, do that. But notice and write down how the obsession, the alcoholic obsession or drug obsessive mind has convinced you. What were the thoughts? Just one, it's Tuesday, I just got promoted, I just got fired, I just got, it's time to celebrate, whatever, and it doesn't matter. Or someone died, and all of that. And I'm not saying that every time that's the obsession, but then just follow it through. What follows that thought, and then that thought. And then once you've had the drink or the drug, then what happened? Did you put it down and walk out? Or was there another? Did you go against your commitment? I'm having one and then I'm done? Because that allergic process takes place. And Joe just read, nothing works like alcohol. And I'm the first to admit that. If I want to get relaxed, nothing works like alcohol. So what am I going to do if I don't have alcohol? I have to learn, to your point, Chris, I got to learn different ways. And that's the work that we were talking about. I've got to learn to do. This is the recreate part that I was referring to before. Because alcohol and drugs, I must come to the conclusion, that they are done. No more.
Yeah.
And and I'm not just saying just quit, but we have to start by making a decision. And later we're going to read that, is this a moral condition or is this a real allergy? And the answer is yes. At some point I have to decide that I'm going to do something different. I may not know what to do. I may not know how to do this. The obsession is going crazy. I want to drink. Well, I can make a decision to call Joe, because Joe doesn't drink and he used to, and he knows what to do. I don't, but Joe does. So the decision to call Joe versus go get that drink, because I know what's going to happen, and I may lie to myself, but the message is do it differently.
Yeah.
And so I just want to distinguish between that, and we can talk more about it. The obsession of the mind, which is so crafty, clever, and never-ending, and the allergy part of it. And I might add that once the allergy kicks in and you take a drink, now the obsession just doubles down, quadruples down. Now it just uses all kinds of stuff. You're okay.
And it uses all of your action against you once we actually take it into our system. I mean, that's the double down factor. It's like, see what you did?
Yeah, we're good.
You know that situation where we see, you mentioned spiders earlier, and I might hear, maybe not quite with spiders, but some creepy crawly bug. Someone says to me, oh, there's a bug. I start feeling tingly on my body. I start feeling, oh, it's on me. It's got me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm visualizing this itch that addiction is. And there's this thought process in the brain that goes, well, I just need to scratch the itch.
Yep.
I just need that one drink. I just need that one puff. I just need that one hit. I just need that one blah, 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 blah. This isn't an itch that can be scratched.
Right.
It's never relieved. It's one of those where you go to scratch it and it moves and you're constantly chasing it, and then it multiplies until to the point where I'm using both hands, right? I'm asking for help. Like this thing is just evolving over time. And the solution is not more drink. The solution is not more drug. But it's something that happens all the time. Let's put more. Let's take more.
So in that case that you just said, if someone were sitting here doing the program, I would turn to them and I would say, based on what Chris just said, identify the obsession of the mind. Where did the obsession of the mind come in?
Right.
And they would look at me and say, I'm not sure. When the obsession started with, I just need one.
Yeah.
And so a great exercise is to go back again. Here I'm repeating myself and identifying. That's what the obsession said. If I could just have one. I mean, that's great if it were possible, but it's never been the case.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, over the quarter of a century, one of the questions I always asked was, when was the last time you had 12 months? And people would sit back and they would look, and it was, by far and away, the most popular answer was 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
So they have never.
Before I quit drinking.
Well, that they had 12 months complete, up to the time they were 15, and never had 12 months since.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, keep going. It's just
So
insane.
then I point out, well, look at what you've done, look at what you've accomplished. And alcohol, is it safe to say that alcohol or drugs have been a part of all of your adult life, your schooling, your adult life, your business, all of it, of the ups and downs? And I said, yes, people agree. Well, let's suppose for a moment that we had 12 mental pistons firing, available. With drugs and alcohol, how many have been firing? The most popular answer was, I don't know, maybe 4, maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, and this is a powerful message to, if we're going to close, look at what you've accomplished with 4 or 5 mental pistons firing.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying there hasn't, you're in treatment, and yes, there's been some destruction and chaos.
Sure.
But nonetheless, you've had relationships, you've had businesses, you got through school. Look at what you've done with 4 or 5.
Right.
As we recreate, as the doctor used that word, as we recreate our lives, what about the notion that we recapture those other 8, maybe 7 pistons? What could we accomplish if we had 10, 11, 12 mental pistons firing without the burden of drugs or alcohol? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're not creating a miserable, boring life. We're creating a robust, full life. And I won't go into all of that today. There will be plenty of time for that. I would just like to give the listener at least the notion that what we're talking about is rich abundance and a quality of life far beyond what we could have ever imagined in our drinking and using days.
Right.
And when he says recreate, I'm telling you, that's exactly what we're doing. And it works. This isn't a sales pitch. I'm not talking about what somebody else. I'm telling you, my personal life is much more today than I ever dreamed that it could have. Frankly, I didn't care if I lived to see 30. It didn't matter to me. I was going to go out in a blaze of glory. And I'm almost 67, so there is tremendous hope. But hope in itself is dangerous. What I'm suggesting is the hope is steeped in the strategy of this book, this program that Joe was reading about, these ideas that they're talking about. So, with that, I'll be quiet. That's all I'll say about that.
At least until next time. Gentlemen, thank you. This is our hope, our collective hope, is that our listener benefits so greatly from this. But I've been excited about this for quite some time, and to get opportunity to listen to the two of you share your experience and your perspectives and real life examples of how to apply this. And we're just getting started. We're not even to the 1
right
yet.
Yep.
To you listeners, we are just getting started. Please personalize this information. Be honest with yourself. Look in the mirror. Gather information from outside yourself. If you're a casual drinker or user, a problem drinker or user, an alcoholic or an addict, dig deep. Be willing. And we'll see you on this next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Do Your Dailies podcast. We hope this has impacted your life for the good. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. If you like what you hear and what we're talking about, please like and subscribe and share this show with your friends. That's the best way to support us bringing you more content. You can follow us on YouTube and Facebook at Do Your Dailies and on X at DoYourDailies_. This podcast is brought to you by Hobble Creek Behavioral Health and is edited and produced by Motley Sounds.